Hello, everyone. Welcome to Feedstuffs 365. I'm Sarah Muirhead. Today, we're going to explore groundbreaking in-field technology that allows for the on-site testing of THC and gender in hemp plants. Michael Adler and Mike, I'm sorry, Mike, your last name, Dalle?
Dalle, Molle.
Dalle Molle. I'm so sorry for
No
butchering that.
problem.
They're founders of Mariposa Technology, and they're here with us today. Welcome to you both. Mike,
Thank
let's
you.
start with you. Let's have you frame up for us, if you would, please. What does the hemp industry look like in terms of its size and scope? And also, what are some of the possible use applications for hemp that we need to be considering?
So the hemp industry has been growing pretty steadily since the Farm Bill. We've noticed some declines here and there in certain areas, but for the most part, we do believe that the industry is still growing very rapidly. We expect the industry to be valued at over $17 billion by 2027. So, that puts us at quite a large market. And our technology is poised to hopefully revolutionize the entire market, everything from grain and fiber and shiv all the way to materials to be processed for medical, CBD oils, all kinds of things like that.
So tell us about Mariposa. What's its mission? How did it come to be?
So Mariposa Technology is a business that we started about 18 months ago, and our goal is to design and develop very simple, standardized point and shoot testing methods for agriculture. We are starting with hemp and cannabis, and we do intend to move into other fields of agriculture. However, we're setting out really to make the job of the farmer significantly easier. Our goal is to create a tool that will not only optimize the cultivation of their crops, but also to enhance their ability to test those crops. Everything from viruses, different pathogens, cannabinoids, things that people need to understand for appropriate growth, and then to also sell their product afterwards. So for us, really, we're starting with the hemp and cannabis industry, but we see ourselves as an agricultural tool at large.
So when we talk about the hemp industry, what problem does the technology that you've developed solve?
So the world of hemp and cannabis testing, but I'll start with focusing on hemp, is very tumultuous for the farmers and growers. So labs have all sorts of different kinds of inconsistencies with the results that they provide to farmers and growers. We can have long lead times, up to 7 days, to get a test back from a laboratory. Most of the tests, HPLC and GC, these are the two most common types of testing in the industry. They're labor intensive. They take a lot of training, really, to perform on a benchtop laboratory piece of equipment. As I said before, lead times can range anywhere from 1 to 7 days, which is quite a long time for a farmer. And they're destructive and invasive to the plant. So anyone testing their crops needs to cut and trim pieces off of that plant, multiple plants, actually. And then they have to desiccate those samples according to the lab's standards. So it's quite an arduous process. And our goal is to make that process significantly more simple.
So can you have, since you're talking about it can take 7 to 10 days, can your threshold, your level, your THC level change within that period of time? Is there a risk there for that to happen?
Absolutely. And in fact, scientifically speaking, it will change almost for sure.
So measuring the THC and knowing the gender of the hemp plant is particularly important then for farmers.
Absolutely. So there's a federal mandate to keep all hemp products below 0.03% total THC. And as anyone who's in the industry knows, that's very hard. And the plant wants to cultivate higher levels of total THC because naturally it tends to have more than that. So it's a big challenge for farmers and growers all across the world, but particularly in the States where we have a very low level, a very low threshold. Farmers and growers are mandated by law to destroy their crop if they run hot, which is essentially having total THC levels over 0.03%. So for us, we see this as imperative to the industry, really. As of today, we've spoken to a handful of farmers all across the country, dozens, in fact, that have lost a lot of money and have even gone out of business because of these laws. And so for us to develop a test that can be performed in field on demand in real time, we think is a is a revolutionary step really for the industry.
So give me just a little bit of background. When it comes to THC and the levels in a crop, what influences that? Is it the genetics of the plant? Is it the environment? Is it the weather? How does all that play together? What do farmers need to be aware of?
Yeah, so really all of those are factors. Ultimately, it depends on everything. We've even tested the exact same strain of hemp from different states, and soil content, exposure to sun, exposure to moisture and rain. Those things have made the two different crops, which come from the same seed and the same strain, completely different. So it's a matter of understanding everything going on while you cultivate your crop, and I think that really does lead us to the real why in terms of why we started this business, because our tool allows farmers and growers to get a full understanding of their crop. It's we're talking about THC right now, and you mentioned the sexing of the plant, understanding the gender, which we should talk more about, but our tool can do much more than that as well. And as we continue to develop the tool, we've kind of uncovered all these additional things that we can do and different tests that we can perform. So I'd say for farmers and growers, it's really difficult to understand all of these different parameters. Nitrogen, drought, these things affect your crop significantly. And without a product like ours, it's very hard to understand what your plant is going through at the moment when you want to learn more about your crop.
Talk to us about the importance of knowing the gender, the sex of the plant, and how all that plays into it.
Sure. So in the world of cannabis, male plants are not highly favored. Rogue male plants in a field can pollinate hundreds of other plants. So when you have pollination occur, you'll get seeds in the flowers. And it also does change the way that plant will grow. So you can think, beyond the steps of cultivation when you move into processing and you move into retail and all of these other sectors. People don't really want to purchase flower that has seeds in it. So that's really the main reason. For certain parts of the industry, it doesn't matter too much. Grain and fiber, the plants are fine having seeds, but there's still a devaluation in the product at that point. So ultimately, other than researchers, everyone really wants to have female plants and exclusively female plants. So as of now, there's no way other than visually, walking through your fields and visually looking at all of these plants to determine the sex of the plant. Our technology allows you to determine the sex of the plant in immature plants. So this is right now we're targeting around 6 to 8 weeks of growth, but we believe we'll be able to determine the sex of the plant well earlier than that once we finish research.
And you mentioned grain. That's, of course, an area that our audience is particularly interested in. Will your technology allow for, and maybe it's down the road further, to actually look at, say, the nutritive value of that grain, of that seed, when it's of that plant, whatever it might be?
Yes. So, as of right now, we are still a research and development company. We're pre-revenue. We plan on launching commercially very soon, within the next 3 to 4 months. And up until we launch and we start to accrue additional data and really start to dig into the new kinds of tests we can perform, I don't want to say that we will be able to do that. However, the technology that we use, which is called Raman spectroscopy, it basically delivers a molecular fingerprint of whatever you scan with the laser. So any kind of complex living tissue is basically scanned by this laser. It's an extremely powerful laser, 831 nanometers. And this laser creates photonic excitation within whatever living tissues you scan. And that is a key. They have to be living tissues. So our device wouldn't work on like dried or desiccated plant samples, for example. And if you have the database to back up what you are scanning, you can really understand anything about the plant. So as of today, we can perform we can perform between 4 and 6 tests, depending on what we're scanning, whether it's cannabis or hemp. But we do believe we'll be able to offer anywhere from 10 to 20 different kinds of tests with our device in the near future. And again, time, money, and effort really are the only obstacles holding us back from having a database that unleashes access to everything, like you're speaking of, nutrients, all sorts of different deficiencies, abiotic stresses, and the list goes on. So we're very confident in the technology being able to do that. But as of today, we're not focusing on that yet.
So, Michael, you've worked with Texas A&M University and doing some research. Tell us, how did that partnership come together, and exactly how did that, what came out of that?
Well, it really goes back to our origin story when we started forming our business group. Our original plan was to start a laboratory, because the hemp and cannabis business is in its infancy in Louisiana, where we're based, just like it is everywhere else. And there really hasn't been a lot of laboratory development here. And from our research, we found that in a lot of the markets across the country, there's a need for laboratories, and there's a lack of supply. In the due diligence in putting together a lab, and we did a lot of research, we were looking at real estate, we were investigating the equipment, we were coming together with a business plan. And in that due diligence, we came across research coming out of Texas A&M that indicated that they had developed a technique with a new technology that was potentially disruptive. And we sought out to acquire the technology for the lab we were putting together. We wanted to have the latest and greatest of whatever we would assemble for a new business. It turns out that we couldn't find it commercially available anywhere. In fact, it was just too new. It hadn't been developed commercially yet at all. That led us to reach out directly to Texas A&M and Professor Dmitry Kurowski, who specifically developed it, and began our discussions with him about how we might be the ones to come about commercializing the technology.
Are you working on any other partnerships, or have there been any that have led up to this?
Yes, we have numerous partnerships, including one with Cornell. We're part of their capstone project, and we have research being conducted at that university. We're part of the Midwestern Hemp Database, which is a collective of several universities in the Midwest. And I tell you, when you say partnerships, just about everybody that we've come across in the industry has been welcomed us with open arms, and we literally called everybody with a hemp license in the state of Louisiana just to talk to them about our business, what we're considering doing. And we have research partners in Colorado, in Florida, and everybody. I could consider all those people to be partners, but some of them substantial. So there's some larger companies in the industry have welcomed us in to help us develop by allowing us to scan the crops as they grow, and to follow the development of the crops with repeated scans so that we can collect the data, which for hemp doesn't exist, and get this technology to where it can be very effective.
So, Mike, we're talking data, and you're talking, of course, there has to be a collection of data for any kind of technology like this to come together and to kind of build off of. How did you work with farmers? Because I'm assuming you worked with farmers to build this database, and kind of how does it all work? What all goes into that?
Yeah, absolutely. And when we set out on this project, we certainly underestimated the amount of data we would need. And so that part of this project is ongoing, and I think it will indefinitely grow. The more data in the database, the better the results and the higher the accuracy. So for us, we believe that we'll continue to grow that database forever. But as of today, we've taken 33 different trips to 21 different facilities in 7 states across the country. We have amassed millions of data points on hemp plants as well as cannabis plants. And with all of that, we've basically been able to create a database that works in the cloud, that is easily accessible and works quickly. And it works very well with the application that we're building. So we are designing and developing an application called PAMApp. This will be our first commercial offering. It stands for Predictive Analytical Modeling Application for Plants. And this will be the same skeleton, I would say, for the future of Mariposa Technology moving into other crops. So right now, this is going to work for hemp and cannabis, but the same platform is going to be used to build out, corn, soy, cotton, et cetera. Anything plant-based is going to utilize this platform. So we're spending a lot of time and energy developing it. And we actually do have a video that we can show briefly as a quick walkthrough. So the user will log in to PAMApp. They'll connect their scanner, which is a separate device. Once that connection is successful, they'll be able to go through all of their scans. They'll be able to write memo fields. Maybe they name their strain something different. they'll be able to view previous scan history. So as long as they subscribe to our service, they'll have a full access to all of their previous scan history, so they can monitor crops grow, overgrow, make sure they're not, missing any major discrepancies. They'll be provided with very clear results for total THC and for sex, the sex ID of the plant, that is. And then beyond that, we'll have other subscriptions that they can subscribe to. We'll be able to provide CBD and CBG content. We'll be able to provide one-day drought stress tests, nitrogen stress tests, light and UV stress tests. So these are all extremely important for farmers to understand how their crop will continue to grow and to understand when to harvest that. Like I said in the beginning, the major pain point we're trying to solve here is helping hemp farmers from having to face the loss of all of their crops. So this is primarily an issue with THC. However, the same thing can occur if a rogue male is in their fields, for example, and that rogue male pollinates 600 out of their 900 plants. And now they're looking at selling what they can pull off of 300 plants versus that 900. And so it's a huge loss. We also believe that the industry is in its infancy still, even though it's had a lot of buzz and press. We still do believe that we're going to see a significant amount of development here. So what y'all just saw is really the very beginnings of PAMAP, and hopefully it continues to grow like we think it will.
Well, and you're showing us what, on the farm, what a farmer would see, but what does this technology
Absolutely.
mean for the future overall, the future of hemp farming as an industry itself? Is it going to propel its growth or help it to refine what it's doing, or what's it going to do? What's going to be the implications?
So I believe it will do both of those. I think it's going to break the chains from these farmers and growers and allow them to really understand and own their crop and own their cultivation process. We've spoken to hundreds of hemp farmers and cannabis farmers across the country, and all of them feel that they need to have more freedom to do what they want to do with growing their crops. It's regulated. It's regulated very differently than other crops, but the regulations are different state to state, even county to county. People are always having to make sure they're up to date with whatever the newest regulations are. They can face jail time. They can face all sorts of different penalties because it is still considered a Schedule I substance. So we're trying to help farmers. We're trying to push the industry forward and kind of move beyond the testing standards that are utilized today, which we believe are becoming antiquated.
Yeah, the way I would say it is, I would say that this type of technology in the hands of farmers gives them real ownership of and control of their growing process in a way that now they have to depend on others.
Do you think we'll ever get to the point where maybe there's standardization of these rules and regulations for that industry? It sounds right now it's kind of state by state or area by area.
Well, the way it works is that state by state, they have different ways that they're implementing a federal standard. So at the very least, there is the same 0.03% THC standard across the country. So that at least that's standardized, which is an opportunity for us to optimize our tool based on that single national standard. Every state, though, has their own system for exactly when they test, how they test. Do they send their samples to an independent lab, or is it a state-run lab that gives the certified state results? So that's the part that sort of varies state by state.
So where does a farmer go to get more information on Mariposa or the technology in general?
So mariposatechnology.com is our website, and that will link out to everything else that we have on the internet. So that's a great place to start. And we are, I'd say, most active on LinkedIn. So if anyone is on LinkedIn, we're in all of the farming groups on LinkedIn, and we're posting constantly there just general information about the hemp industry. And we do also have about a dozen or so of our own original articles on our website that you can read that kind of give our personal take on the hemp industry and what you can expect.
Very good. Our thanks to you, Mike and Michael, for being with us today. We appreciate your time. Thank you all for tuning in as well. Until next time, for Feedstuffs 365, I'm Sarah Muirhead.